Hey, it's Dane here. I hope you're well. Just wanted to record a quick video. I know that we've got our strategy session coming up soon, and I wanted to make sure that you were ready for that. It's really important to understand this is just general information, not personal advice. I don't know all your circumstances, so I don't know what's appropriate yet. So that's all the legal stuff out of the way. So our job is really to help you achieve a work optional lifestyle. Now, work optional lifestyle, that for us is the point where you've got enough money to decide if you want to work. It doesn't necessarily mean retirement. It's all about choices. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an activity to do right now so that when we jump on the call, we can really start to map out a plan towards that work optional lifestyle. I want to run you through a quick model we call the strategy scan. So to get that work optional lifestyle, there's three things you are going to need. Firstly, structure. First thing we need to know when we talk about a work optional lifestyle is what are your goals? We need to understand your goals because that's going to help determine how much you need to put towards those goals. And the clearer we are about them, the easier it is for us to know how much you're going to need to be able to invest or save. Next, you're going to need to have a strategy. So when we talk about strategy, we're talking about getting your money working for you in a way that's as tax effective as possible and with the least amount of risk that you need to take to achieve your goals. And then the last thing that we need for that work optional lifestyle is to have a plan in place to protect us if something was to happen. So to protect the wealth that we've already built, but also the wealth that we are still to build. So we've got a plan to protect that. So I'm going to run you through these in a little bit more detail so it'll make more sense. And what I'd love you to do right now is to grab a sheet of paper and a pen. And I want you to draw a triangle on it. Nothing fancy, just a triangle. And I want to run through these drivers, these accelerators. The three things that make up the structure, three things that make up the strategy, and the three things that make up safety. And as I run through each of these areas, I want you to imagine a traffic light. So each of these areas under strategy are either green, yep, you're all good, yellow, might need a little bit of tweaking or refinement, or red, it's a real problem and you would love some help on it urgently. So think about those colours. If you don't have a coloured pen, don't stress, just write red, yellow or green next to them. Write the colours. So I'm going to talk to you through these now, and as you go, just write next to them what they are. That way, when we jump on our strategy session, it's going to give me an overview of which ones are green, which ones are red, and where I think the opportunities might lie. So it's going to make our conversation a lot more useful if you do this. All right, let's go. So starting with structure, decided the plan to achieve a work optional lifestyle. First up is the spending plan. So when we're talking about goals, there's three things to get clear. The first is the spending plan. Do you have a clear idea about how much you need to maintain your lifestyle? I'm talking about how much money do you need to pay for the food bills, gifts, hobbies, travel, everything that you do. How much do you need to live off? It's really important that we're clear on this because this is going to help us know how much you need for a work optional lifestyle. So really important we have a clear spending plan. So are you green all over it? You know exactly what you need to live off. Yellow, you sort of have an idea, or really red as you've got no idea how much you need to live a comfortable lifestyle. Short-term goals. Next, we've got to get you clear on what your short-term goals are. Things that you want to do over the next 1 to 2 years. So it's important that we identify what your short-term goals are because we want to make sure that there's enough money for those to set aside either in cash right now or that you can save up for them. Because we don't want to have your short-term goals invested in things like shares or property, because in the short term, these assets can be quite volatile and or costly to exit. So have you got a clear plan about what your short-term goals are? Again, red, green or yellow. And then likewise, we want to know, have you got clear about your long-term goals? So those are, say, 5 years plus. How much you'll spend in your work optional lifestyle, maybe the sort of legacy that you want to leave. So it's important that we know what these are, what your long-term goals are, because it's going to drive the amount of risk that you take and also how much you need to. So for short-term goals, are you red, yellow or green? And long-term goals, red, yellow or green. So if you're super confident about what your goals are and you know you can achieve them all and you know exactly what you're going to do, you're green. If you aren't super confident but you've got some goals, you're just not clearly defined, you're in orange. Or if you've never really looked at it and haven't really thought about what your goals are, and if you do have a goal, you're not really sure what's possible or what you need to do to get there, that's a red. So now let's talk about strategy. This is the wealth building part, and there really are three things. Firstly, assets. So what assets are you using to build your wealth? Have you got assets such as shares, property, a business? Have we got a strategy to regularly add to these? And have we thought about diversification to reduce the risk so that our wealth isn't heavily invested in one particular asset? And how do we feel that we're going with assets? Is everything awesome? You covered off in those areas? That's a green. If your assets maybe aren't growing as quickly as you'd like, that's a yellow. Or if you think it's a real problem, that's a red. So just write on there what you think you are. The second thing we need to look at when we're looking at strategies is tax. Have we proactively thought about what person or entity is best to own these assets from a tax perspective? Should we have them in individual names, joint names, company, trust, or even investment bond structure? Have you really thought about tax? Again, if it's a strength and you've been proactive with it, great, that's a green. If you think a yellow, it might need some work. And red is a real opportunity or a real problem. Okay, so the last thing on strategy is debt. Have you got a plan in place to be debt free? And when was the last time you reviewed your interest rates? Are you across the benefits of an offset account, or even better, multiple offset accounts compared to a redraw facility, particularly if you've got investment debt? And if you do have an investment, have you considered the pros and cons of interest-only loans? So how do you think you're going with debt? Are you fully across it and have a strategy for your debt that's green, or is it yellow or red? Okay, so the last thing we need to look at is safety. So I'm going to talk about protecting your strategy to achieve a work optional lifestyle. I'm talking about, have you got an emergency fund of at least 3 to 6 months of expenses? The emergency fund could be cash savings, a redraw facility, money in the offset account. We want to make sure that you've got some emergency funds set aside. And have you got insurances in place? If you got sick and couldn't work, have you got the right insurances in place? So things like income protection. Have you thought about how best to own these policies? For example, in your super fund versus your own name. Or if you've passed away, have you got enough insurance so that your family is looked after? And you do have these set up, then great. When was the last time you reviewed them? Has it been a while? And as things have now changed, do you have more debt, less debt than you might have had before? Are you earning more or earning less than you were before? So how do we think about insurances? Green, they're all set up. You've recently had them looked at. They're all good. Yellow, you have them, but maybe it's been a while since you've looked at them and you're not really sure that you've got the right cover. Red, it's been some time or you have no idea what you've got or whether it's even enough, so that would be a red. And the last thing we want to talk about is protecting the wealth that you've built from things like being sued, divorce and separation, sickness, or passing. So to do this, we need to think about how best to own assets. Which ones go through the will, which ones don't. And also make sure we have the right documentation in place. So if you died last night, have you got the right documents in place to ensure that your assets go to the right people at the right time, and most importantly, with as minimal tax payable as possible? So things like a will, a binding death nomination for your superannuation, and if you were sick, have you got an enduring power of attorney in place so that someone could sign and pay your bills on your behalf if something was to happen to you? And if you've got all of those, great, that's green. You're all over it. Or are you yellow or red? So you'll probably have some yellows and you'll most certainly have some reds as well. And the reds are just the opportunities for us to work on. So when it comes to our strategy session, we're going to look at the colours, where you're at, what's working, what's not. And it's going to help us really nicely so we can focus our time and attention on the stuff that's really going to move the needle for you. And it's going to give me a quick update of where your plan is strong and where the opportunities are to improve. Okay, so hopefully you did what we just went through. And if not, take a couple of seconds right now and color code around the outside, or just write red, orange, and green next to each of them. So that's going to make it a lot easier for when we catch up. And look forward to chatting again at our next strategy session. Bye for now.